Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are walking through propane systems and engine care, also a little bit of vehicle maintenance thrown in there. We will be turning on and testing the propane system, checking for leaks and making sure all the lines and appliances are operating safely and correctly. We are also going to touch on engine maintenance for motorhomes and tow vehicles. Let's jump in. First up is the propane system. And rather than sit here and talk about it, Dan is going to provide an overview of his process of maintaining our propane system after winter storage and throughout the camping season. Let's head outside and have a look.
Okay, first thing we want to do is remove the cover. You can see that we have two tanks. One of them is full and one of them is empty. This is the empty gauge, the empty tank. This is the full one. So we used essentially one full tank last year during our camping season. So we want to make sure these valves should be closed on both tanks. And then the first thing we want to do is loosen the bracket that holds both tanks in place. We'll set these aside.
So normally we just go through one tank per camping season, right?
Yes.
And we use propane for the stove, the heater, the water heater, and also we have a griddle that we cook on that is propane.
Yes. So the next thing we want to do is loosen this, and then we'll just put the protective cap back on. We take ours in to have them refilled. It's a little less expensive to do it that way versus taking the tank like some of the services that offer this. If you take a tank in, you can trade it in and get a fresh tank. It's a little more expensive that way, so we just take our current tanks to a supplier. They'll inspect the tank, make sure it's functioning well and is within all safety standards, and they'll refill it, and it's for a fraction of the cost of what it would cost to exchange a tank. So the next step is to just lift this up. You can pull that away. You can just take it right off. So when I removed the gas tank, I noticed that there was a little bit of surface rust down here under the mount for the gas cylinders. So I'm going to take this fluid film. It's a lanolin based rust preventative, and I use it in areas where there's surface rust. It can be used on any metal surface, but this is particularly good where it's kind of hidden. So I'll just spray a little bit here. And what this does, this kind of just penetrates into the area and it moves around and it covers the metal so that it stops the rust from forming. This is also a good product to use on the underside of your vehicle or your tow vehicle. If you live in a climate where there's a lot of salt in the roads in winter, this stuff is really good. You can find places that will apply it for you. You can use it yourself. You can buy these cans individually, and if you are so desire, you can crawl underneath your car and spray it, but it's kind of messy, but it's definitely worth it because it protects your car really well and it protects all metal surfaces really well. We use this on both of our vehicles, our tow vehicle, which is a Nissan Armada, and we also have a Nissan Frontier truck, and we applied this to both vehicles when we bought them new, and so far we have no rust on the inner side of either vehicle. I usually make an appointment with our installer sometime late summer or early fall, and they'll put it up on the lift. And last year I didn't even need to reapply it. They said the application from the previous year had stayed on really well and there was no need to even touch it up. So most likely if you apply this, it'll last for at least 2 years, depending on your use of your vehicle and how much snow or salt are on the roadway. Okay, since we have the cover off, what we're going to do is use some protectant to keep the UV rays from further degrading the plastic. We're going to use this Chemical Guys version. It'll help coat and bring the color back, and it'll also protect this from UV rays and from the weather in general. I'm also going to use these really nifty heavy-duty paper towel rags. You can see they're much larger and thicker than a paper towel, and I like to use these for this type of application. We'll go ahead and spray this on. You can see it's already changing color.
How often do you have to reapply this?
I would say at least probably twice a year. Once in the summer, or maybe spring, and then once in the fall, depending on how your RV is stored. If it's stored out in direct sunlight,
which ours is, we're out in the
you might want to apply it a little more often, but definitely when you wash your RV, it's a good idea to take the extra time to apply this. You can see it's already makes the top of this look like it's almost new.
Okay guys, need your advice on something. So Dan is very much about just using a plain wooden block under the jack, and I think that we need to get an actual jack support that the round base fits down in. So we want to know what you guys think. Drop it in the comments. Let us know what you're using, or if you think he's right. And if you think he's right, I'm not going to nag him anymore, but I just think that we need to get an actual support for the jack.
Okay, so we went and got our propane tank filled today, so we're going to put it back on. So we'll just reverse the process of what we did earlier. We'll go ahead and secure this. Got our giant wing nut here. We'll tighten that down. Okay. Next step is to tighten this down.
Go.
All right, so we're going to switch tanks here so that this tank over here is the primary tank that will be used first. Seeing that this is the one we just had filled, we want to make sure we use the propane that's older. So what we're going to do is just take this lever and switch it over to that side, and then we'll open up both our tanks. All right, we're just going to use a little gadget we got here. It's a gas leak detector. I don't anticipate there's going to be any issues, but it's always better to be safe than sorry. Okay, now we're ready. And it's not detecting anything, so we're good for, we don't have any leaks. We got both of our tanks filled and we're ready for a full camping season.
Hey everybody, I want to pause here and talk about that auto switching propane regulator that we just saw. This is designed to automatically switch to your backup propane tank whenever the main tank runs empty, so your appliances will keep running without interruption. Here's how this thing works. Both propane tanks connect to the regulator and you open both tank valves. A selector lever points to the tank that you want to use first, and this is considered to be your primary tank. As propane is used, the regulator monitors the pressure coming from that tank. When the primary tank empties and the pressure drops, the regulator automatically begins pulling propane from the backup tank. At the same time, the indicator window changes from green to red, which lets you know that the primary tank is empty and you're now running on the reserve tank. To keep the system working properly, once you see that red, flip the selector lever towards the backup tank, which now becomes your primary tank. The indicator will then turn green again, and you can safely disconnect the empty tank for a refill while your RV continues running on the full tank. One important tip for this is to never leave the selector lever pointed halfway between the tanks. The regulator is not designed to pull from both tanks at once. Leaving it in the middle can restrict propane flow, and it can cause issues with appliances like your furnace or your refrigerator. Now let's shift gears a bit into the vehicle side of things. We have a tow vehicle, so we're going to be looking at that. But if you have a motorhome, it's important to note that this is where your spring prep expands beyond just the RV side of your vehicle, and you're going to move into the engine and the drivetrain and think about the maintenance for those. So whether it's a tow vehicle or a motorhome, spring is the perfect time for a full system check before you start putting miles on it again. In our case, our tow vehicle is also Dan's daily driver, so it's already maintained pretty carefully throughout the year. But even then, spring is a great reminder to slow down and do a more detailed inspection before camping season kicks off. And if you have a motorhome, most of this will directly translate over to you. First up, let's start with engine and mechanical. Start with all of your core fluids: oil, coolant, brake fluid, transmission fluid, and power steering fluid. Top off anything that's low. Check the air filters too, both engine and cabin, especially if the vehicle sat idle all winter. Take a look at the belts and the hoses for cracking or dry rot, and don't forget the battery. Clean those terminals and make sure it's holding a good, solid charge. Moving on to tire and wheels, check all those tires, including your spare. Make sure they're inflated to the manufacturer's cold pressure specifications and inspect them for cracks, bulges, or uneven wear. And while you're there, go ahead and torque the lug nuts to factory spec if you have a torque wrench available. Moving on to towing gear and hitch, inspect your hitch setup for anything unusual like rust, cracks, or wear. You want to go ahead and grease moving contact points if your hitch requires it. And something important for when you're hitching up is to always double check your safety chains. They should be crossed under the coupler and free of rust or kinks. And let's go ahead and pause here for a second and talk about those weight distribution hitches and lubrication, because this is one area where people often will get mixed advice. Whether or not you grease your weight distribution hitch depends entirely on the model that you have. Some systems rely on friction for sway control, and greasing those surfaces can actually reduce their effectiveness. Others are designed to move metal on metal, and they do require lubrication to prevent wear and noise. The key is simple. You always want to follow your manufacturer's instructions. A good rule of thumb, Don't grease friction sway control surfaces. Absolutely don't do it. Do grease pivot points and designated contact areas if your hitch requires it. And always grease your hitch ball unless your manufacturer specifically says otherwise. Before applying anything, you want to clear off any old grease and road grime first so that you're not trapping dirt in the mechanism. Moving on to brakes and electrical, you want to check brake pads, rotors, and calipers, especially if you've done a lot of towing. Test your brake controller in the cab and make sure it's engaging smoothly and the manual override works. Then move to your wiring. Check your 7-way connector for corrosion or bent pins and test all lights when the trailer is connected. For the suspension and drivetrain, you want to inspect your suspension components for leaks, cracks, or wear. If your vehicle has grease fittings, this is a good time to hit those. And if applicable, take a quick look at the drive shaft and U-joints for anything loose or worn. At this point, your propane system should be checked, tested, and ready to safely use. And your tow vehicle or motorhome should have a solid spring maintenance check completed before you hit the road. If you've been following along with the full de-winterization series, you're getting really close to being ready for camping season, which is the fun part. We will continue breaking the rest of this process down step by step in this playlist, so make sure you check out the next video coming up in the series so that you don't miss anything important. As always, if you have any questions, tips, or things you do differently, drop those in the comments. That back and forth is honestly one of the best parts of this community. Thanks so much for watching today, and we'll see you in the next video.